Greetings. Welcome to Homebrew Highlights, a little show where I talk about homemade content for Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Nathan, and for the last 25 years online, I've gone by the Amethyst Dragon. For more than 30 years now, I've been a player and dungeon master, so I've made quite a bit of homebrew in my time. Since I made the switch to 5th edition a few years ago, the pace of that content creation has just jumped, and these days I make so much homebrew that I can't even use it in my 2 home campaigns. I post online for you and anyone else to use in your games. In these videos, I like to highlight some of the homebrews that I've made over the years and ones that other people have created. I try to, rather than look at the numbers and the balance of things, I look more for the ideas, how they can be, how I might use them in a game, how you might use them in a game. For some of my own creations, what were the thoughts during the creation process, or what was the inspiration behind them. So if you would like this sort of video and you like this one, speaking of like, you can hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell to be notified when I post something new. I post weekly now since I started these videos. Links for everything that I talk about will be found down below in the description. And let's get started on this week. Today I'm going to be diving into the third part of my series on lights. Instead of focusing on items this time, we're going to turn to spells. Spells that deal radiant damage or are just themed around light. And then towards the end of the video, because it is the last month of the year, I'll have a few things that have to do with the holidays that people can use in their December adventures. We're actually going to start out with a spell created by another content creator named the Direful Spring. Light Sigil is a first level spell that the Direful Spring posted in response to my second video on lights, and I think it's a fun spell, and I got permission to share it with the rest of you. Light Sigil is kind of like a minor glyph of warding. It only lasts 8 hours instead of indefinitely, but it can be triggered multiple times. So it's a glyph you could probably make really small or up to 10 feet in diameter, so it's versatile. If a creature that would trigger it touches it or steps on it, the thing is basically invisible. It begins to glow and it illuminates everything in a 10-foot radius with bright light. So this could act as a signal or a warning that something is nearby. If everything else is dark, it definitely puts a spotlight on whatever triggered it, which can make them a very obvious and clear target. Now, the spell doesn't mention it, but as a DM, I would actually allow the spellcaster to pick a color of light. Red or green or blue or pink or, pastel orange. Something to make each one a little different. Because I have this idea of a bunch of low-level apprentices or wizarding students at a school like Hogwarts casting this over and over and over in a small area. Because it's a ritual spell, they can do that. To make a disco-style light-up dance floor. A little fun for them. Anyway, it's a Light Sigil. Interesting little spell. So thank you for creating this, the Direful Spring. For spells that I've made, I've got a bunch of them that we're going to go through today. A little faster than I might normally go through some other content because I do have 15 of them here. So these are spells of light and goodness. And these were originally made back in 3rd edition and posted on the old Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons message board. A lot of homebrewing went on back in the day on that site. Back before, making stuff for D&D was even called homebrewing. Because, back in my day, we didn't even have a word for this. Yeah, no, I've been doing it for a while. But at the time, I had made several collections of themed spells. Darkness, spiders, eyes. And one of those themes was spells of light and goodness, and having to do with the color of pure white. For each of these themes, I came up with the name of a NPC spellcaster that might have made them up. Go along the lines of like Mordenkainen or Autoluke or Tensor. And while these were not originally player characters, I just like the ideas of spells being named after creators. It gives a little more personality to them or a bit of lore for your world. For this one, I came up with a wizard named Luminus the White, who used his magic to fight evil things. And so the spells here would be great for your holy spellcasters, or your own version of a white wizard. In older editions, alignment was a big deal. So some of these spells originally affected creatures that were specifically evil in alignment. For 5th edition, since it definitely needs away from that, I changed the spells a bit so they'd work more on certain creature types. So I kind of go with like creatures of the dark, which are your aberrations, your fiends, your undead, things that would lurk in the dark and do bad things in general. So there's some limitations on some of these spells, and some of them are very focused. It's just something to keep in mind, that these were originally intended for fighting evil. We'll start with 1st level and work our way up. First one I have here is called Blinding Flash. This is really a magical flash grenade. It just creates this burst of really, really bright light, and if you don't look away in time, you fail your dexterity save, you're blinded for a few seconds. It doesn't last very long, but it might be enough time for a spellcaster to escape, or for their allies to gain advantage on attacks against the now blinded enemies, which is could be a lot of them in an area. For something that's not so bright, I have Luminus Glow. This one I created because I wanted a version of continual flame that, one, could just make things glow, 2, wasn't as bright, 3, didn't have to look like a torch flame, and really, 4, I wanted something that was cheaper to cast. So instead of spending 50 gold to have one, torch flame, you gotta expend a candle. A lot cheaper, but it's also nowhere near as bright. But I wanted a way for, somebody to just cast on a sword and have a glowing sword. Or I could see a wizard casting it on the pages of their spell book so that they could read at night without having to, illuminate a whole area or have a separate light source. You could do drawings of it, because you can do it works on a surface. Could be, glowing polka dots, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a flame. And it doesn't have to be a 2nd level spell. For another use for light, I have this one called Glowing Tracks. And I think of this one as kind of like you cast on a target and it's like they stepped in invisible paint, or they handled invisible paint, and they leave footprints or handprints that nobody can see because they're invisible. But if the caster of the spell gets near those prints, they begin to glow, almost like they're carrying a magical blacklight with them. So this is really good for tracking things. For my spells that I do for Homebrew, I don't assign them to specific class lists. I think that should be up to individual DMs that bring them into their games. Because some, might fit just for wizards, some might be, sound like good cleric spells, some might be great for a specific warlock patron, cleric domain, new Homebrew subclass. So I leave that up to the DM. This particular spell would be great for rangers that want to do some tracking, or investigator type characters with some spellcasting ability. Even if they only get their spells from like the Magic Initiate feat. But this is a fun little one. Another one at 1st level, I have, sidetrack just for a moment. In 5th edition, pretty much all of the light producing spells are evocation magic. But I like to mix that up because I think if you make the illusion of a torch or a lantern. I think it should give off light. So some of these spells are illusion spells, some are evocation. It just depends on how I was feeling when I made it. This particular one here, Luminous Hall of Lights, is an illusion spell. I think I might have mixed that up with the previous one. Anyway, so you'll see some that are illusion, some that are evocation. Hall of Lights just illuminates a set space. It is kind of like Dancing Light, and it makes, separate light sources, but these are brighter. They last longer and don't require concentration, but you can't move them. So once you place them, when you cast the spell, that's where they are. And as you scale it up, if you cast it at higher levels, it can make more of these lights. I just imagine like lighting up a hallway. There we go. We're lit up and done and done. Don't have to worry about it. Don't have to maintain it. And it lasts an hour. So that is Hall of Lights. Last first level one we got, I have Luminous Hidden Message. This one's definitely invisible ink type spell. You write with it, you draw with it, and then when you're done, it vanishes. You don't see it. But anybody that uses Detect Magic or See Invisibility or True Seeing, it appears to glow. So, yeah, just like invisible ink. I just thought it'd be fun. I could see low-level wizards or anybody, maybe arcane tricksters or anybody who just wants to, write invisibly using this if they know that people will have detection spells on them. Maybe cryptic messages could be fun to be written in this. It doesn't have to be just player characters that use these spells. Moving up to second level, I have Luminous Bright Glow. A lot like Luminous Glow. This can be used on surface. You get to pick the color. Doesn't look like a flame, but this one is as bright as Continual Flame. But being more versatile, I gave it a more expensive material component. Lots of uses for it, but it doesn't have to be a fire. Even a fake fire that doesn't burn anything. Combat-wise, I have this spell called Luminus Moonbeams. This one you throw out multiple beams of pale white light and hit things and inflict radiant damage. It was slightly different in 3rd edition, but for 5th edition I modeled it after Scorching Ray with the multiple beams. It does 2d4 radiant damage, which is a bit less than the 2d6 fire damage that Scorching Ray does, but there's less things resistant to radiant damage, and I felt it better to do slightly less potential damage. That's Moonbeams. Really simple spell. Now, Luminus Moonblade. This one creates a magical short sword. It is transparent, but it's outlined in like pale fairy fire. So it's got a cool visual to it, and when you hit with it, it does radiant damage instead of piercing. And because it's a spell, you get to use your spellcasting ability modifier for the attack and damage rolls. You can hand this off to somebody else to use, if you don't want to be in the thick of things yourself. But it isn't quite as effective because they can't use their spellcasting ability for it, or yours, and they can't use their strength and dexterity modifier with it. But it is radiant damage in time of need. I just have, it's a cool visual, just like conjuring up a sword and then hitting something with it. It sounds like fun. So yeah, it does radiant damage because it is a light spell. So that is Luminus Moonblade. Moving up to 3rd level, I have this spell Luminus Light from Darkness. This is kind of like a souped up dark vision spell, basically. Instead of, just having dark vision, like you were born with it, this one lets you see in normal darkness as if it were bright light, so you don't have that disadvantage on perception checks. And then you can actually see through magical darkness as if it were normal darkness. So then you do, it is, just black and white. But it's just more powerful. Better version. It's almost like you have your own wavelength of light that only you can see. or some souped up night vision. So that's light from darkness. Another third level spell I have here is Luminous Sword of Brilliance. You cast this on an existing weapon. Doesn't necessarily have to be a sword. And it begins to glow with this bright light to illuminate the area. And the sword is actually drawn towards these creatures of darkness. I listed it as aberrations, fiends, and undead. You or your DM may decide it's other creatures as well. This could totally be a spell for divine warriors like War Domain Clerics or Light Domain Clerics, or my Oath of Light Paladin that I talked about a couple weeks ago. This doesn't do radiant damage unless it's cast with higher level spell slots. The cool thing it does is that weapon is drawn towards these creatures of darkness, so you have advantage on attack rolls against them with it. And you don't have to be the one wielding it, so you could hand it off to your paladin buddy or barbarian or whoever wants to use the weapon. So that is Luminous Sword of Brilliance. Another third level one I got here is Luminous White Oblivion. I thought it just sounded cool, and what this does is it combines two effects of a second level spell. When you cast this on someone, they are deafened and blinded. The only thing they can see is just pure white in every direction. They can't see anything else at all. They are blinded by whiteness, bright white, and everything else just fades away. So that is Luminous White Oblivion. Third level spell that combines both effects of the blindness and deafness spell. Moving up to fourth level, we've got Luminous Radiant Aura. This one you cast it on yourself and you give off this bright light, and it's helpful for other people, but it's really designed to be protection for the spellcaster. These creatures of darkness that I've been talking about, they find it painful to look at you, so they don't hit you as easily. And if they do manage to hit you, they take radiant damage, just as kind of, punishment for getting that close and for hurting you. So, a protective aura spell. Kind of like Fire Shield, only, radiant. So that is Luminous Radiant Aura. This next one, Luminous Redeeming Flames, is kind of like a very specialized fireball. Instead of like, orange and red, yellows when you cast it, the flames are pure white. And they only target certain creatures, these creatures of darkness again. So you could cast it in a crowd of people that, are being attacked by a demon or, some zombies or something, and the innocents will be just fine. They can run for their lives, they can stay where they are, that's their choice. But these creatures of darkness will get burned by radiant damage. Very specialized. I made it a higher level, and it is radiant damage instead of fire. So that is Luminous Redeeming Flames, a crowd-safe area of effect spell. Moving up a couple of levels now, we're going to jump to 7th level. I have this one called Luminous White Rapture. Originally, it basically just, killed things with white light. This one, for 5th edition, I modeled it after Disintegrate. So it is a light-powered version of Disintegrate. When you hit something with it, it does radiant damage. But instead of leaving nothing but dust, it leaves the body there. But it makes it so that that body cannot be reanimated as an undead creature. Takes a little bit from Gentle Repose there and mixes it in. Instead of total destruction, we have preservation, keeping the undead from rising. So that is Luminous White Rapture. Originally, because I kind of envisioned it as, if it killed it, it took their soul and sent it off to wherever they needed to be. That's where the Rapture name came from. Moving up to 8th level, we got our final spell here for the light stuff. This is Luminous White Room. This is a specialized form of the Force Gauge spell. It only has the solid walls. You can't do the bars. But what it does is you catch something in it, and the only thing that they can see in the entire interior is walls and ceiling and floor of bright white light. And this actually causes a low amount of radiant damage every turn that they're in there. From the outside, the walls are transparent. You can see what's inside pretty well because it's illuminated by this light. And it's really a perfect vampire trap because they can't escape in gaseous form. If they can teleport out, they might be able to get out. They have to, make a save or ability check to break free with teleportation. But if they don't have that, they're just going to slowly cook in the radiant light that keeps them from regenerating. So that is Luminous White Room. Good spell? Evil white spell? I don't know. It depends on your opinion if you're a vampire or not, I guess. Or undead, or actually, radiant damage can hurt anything, mostly. But, stuff that isn't as bad isn't going to suffer as much. So that is the White Room. And that's it for the spells of light. Moving on now, that is December. It's time for a lot of DMs to start working on their holiday one-shots, mixing in holiday-themed content into their regular campaigns. And for that, I have made some content over the last couple of years, and we're going to go for a few of them today. First one I made up a couple of days ago on the morning of December 1st. It is called Hot Chocolate Surprise. This is a spell that conjures hot chocolate or hot cocoa, your choice. There is a difference. One is made with like cocoa powder and mixed together and cooked, and the other one is melted chocolate in like hot milk. And basically what it does is it fills a cup with hot, ready-to-drink, chocolatey beverage. But it actually doesn't fill a cup. It fills every cup in range. So that is the surprise there, because you can serve many, many, many people with that, especially if you have a room with the shelves and tables just filled with mugs and cups and tankards. It's any suitable drinking vessel. Drinking horns, shot glasses, they are all filled with chocolatey, wonderful, milky goodness. Perfect temperature for drinking, so you're not going to boil somebody in it. It's good stuff. If the vessel already has something in it that's a non-magical liquid, it will transmute that liquid into the same hot chocolatey drink and then top off whatever container it is, or whatever drinking vessel it is. If you expend an additional material component, you can actually add a flavor to it, like caramel or mint, butterscotch. Lots of different flavors you can add to it. Fruit. You can have it have marshmallows if you expend a marshmallow as a material component. There's a lot of people who think this sounds like a cantrip. May not be worth a second level spell slot for one person or even a small group alone in the wilderness. But the fact that it can transmute an unlimited number of, transmute or fill an unlimited number of drinking vessels within the area, could be at a tavern, fancy party somewhere, that's actually pretty powerful magic. So I chose to make it second level. So, surprise, everyone gets hot chocolate or hot cocoa, even if they didn't ask for it. Either one, both are delicious. Might not make some bar patrons happy, but if you're out on a leading a frozen expedition or a military force marching through snow and ice, they might actually make you the most popular person ever. So that is Hot Chocolate Surprise. Another thing I made is the Candy Cane. This is a magical club that looks like a large piece of twisted hard candy. Could have certain red or green stripes. It is a +1 club that you can actually eat. If you eat a portion of it, it fills you up and nourishes you for an entire day, kind of like Goodberry does. It doesn't heal you, though. And portions of it that you eat return at sunrise the next day. But if you eat too much of it, the club could be destroyed. If you are the only person that, takes a few bites out of it, the club is basically unaffected. But if more people eat from it, or if you are taking multiple like large chomps out of the thing, it starts to lose some of its magic. You know, if it's you and a second person who eat from it, and this is like at the end of a short or long rest, the club loses its +1 bonus to attack and damage. If a third large chunk is taken out of it and eaten, it is no longer considered a magical weapon. If, 4 large pieces of it are eaten, which is pretty much the whole thing, the club is destroyed. It's just gone forever. But if that happens, everybody who ate from it that day heals some hit points. So in an emergency, a dire emergency where you have absolutely nothing else, you might want to sacrifice the candy cane to heal yourself and several of your companions. And then to finish off the holiday stuff for this week, we're going to go with a Baker's Nightmare. The Gingerbread Terror is a huge construct made from overcooked pieces of gingerbread, like gingerbread cookie. It has the general size and shape of a huge bear. Well, shape. The thing is huge. And this evil red light seems to glow from deep within it. So it doesn't look like, a gingerbread cutout shape. It is like pieces of gingerbread. And this glow like seeps between the different pieces and out of its throat and out of its empty eye sockets. And the Gingerbread Terror lives to eat people. Kind of turning the tables there. The cookies are eating the people. Every time it bites a creature, it heals itself a little bit. And this thing can open its mouth like really wide and just like swallow a person whole. And that's when things get even worse, because the person who is swallowed has to start making some saving throws. And if they start to fail, kind of like petrification, they start to stiffen up. But instead of turning into stone, they turn into hard gingerbread. Yeah, so it turns people into cookies. So that is the Gingerbread Terror. The thing is constantly hungry too. It never stops. It can fit a couple people inside it at a time. Yeah, gingerbread can be dangerous. So that's the Gingerbread Terror. Well, that's it for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this sort of stuff and to get more homebrew videos like this one. If you want to peek at all the content that I've made, you can head over to my grand list of homebrew content at www.amethyst-dragon.com. A lot of my content is free. There's well over 800 things on there, 850 at least by now. A lot of it is free, and every one that is free is marked on that list very clearly. Now, everything that I post is available for people who become patrons of the D&D Arts on my Patreon. They get access to everything that I've made. Some patrons get access to everything I make 2 weeks earlier than everyone else for the newest content, and some can even request custom-made homebrews specifically for their game or their character. All they got to do is ask. Even if you don't become a patron, I do thank you for stopping in to watch and listen to this video, listen to me talk about homebrew stuff. It's what I do. I enjoy this, and I like to, share my ideas behind it. So, thanks. Tune in next week for another video in this series. Not sure what the theme behind that one will be, or if it's just a random collection. We'll see what I come up with. But we're going to finish this out. My name is Nathan. This has been Homebrew Highlights with the Amethyst Dragon. Thanks for stopping in. Take care. Have a great week. And I'm going to go make some more homebrews. Not sure what's next. We'll see.